is Weekend Work on Shade 45.
The Bad Boys of Radio, love Dinero, Coach PR. This is Weekend Work and PR. You know, I want to say something to you. One thing about Weekend Work, right? We don't just cover artists. We give people.
No, we just don't cover rappers. No.
Rappers, none of that. We give an entertaining show. Do you agree?
Show. I absolutely agree. 1,000% concur with you, my brother.
So I'm going to let you introduce the guest that we're talking to today. Go ahead, PR.
This guy right here, you see his story on ABC. You heard his story about him getting wrongfully accused and did 7.5 years. I think he got charged with almost life, right? 70 years to life, am I right?
I got life and 70 years, life on the kingpin charge and 70 years on the other convictions.
The first one to have to go through this, became a lawyer while incarcerated and helped out mad inmates, helped himself out, got free, exonerated. Mr. Isaac Wright. I'm going to give
let's get a round of applause for him, man.
Thank you for joining us, my brother.
Glad to be here.
And off the air, when we talked before you got on, Love, I know this man since we was kids, 1985 or something like that. He used to come to Queens Village, pull up in a white Benz, 300, skirted out, him and Big Sean, Ultimate 3, and come and scoop us up in the Benz, and we'll be in Benzes riding around. And I never knew this was him till ever. My brother told me this was him. Isn't that crazy, bro?
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.
That's crazy.
And he remembers. He remembers.
I remember, yeah.
I'm like,
I wouldn't have honestly, I wouldn't have recognized you. If your brother didn't put you on, we would have been talking to each other on this interview and not knowing that we even know each other. But when you told me about it, I remember now it all came back to me. Yeah, man, that was a long time ago. And like I said before, man, during that time, it was a very dangerous time, but it was a very historical time, you know, because a lot of the seeds for what we're seeing today, this multi-billion-dollar industry was planted right then. It was planted during those times with those groups like the Ultimate 3, you know, like Four Righteous Teachers, like KRS-One.
And you had managed, what was the name of the group, the girl group you were managing with your wife? At that time.
There was my wife was in the Cover Girls.
Cover Girls,
Yeah, Sunshine Wright. She was in the Cover Girls. I managed LaShawn Too Much, you know, the girl that was with LL, on the Doing It album.
On the hook.
Right.
She was actually in a group called Too Much, and LL used that song that I produced for them and redid it on Doing It. And she did the hook, and then Ultimate 3, I managed. I mean, I was heavily in music, heavily in entertainment back in that time, and pretty successful. I mean, we drove around in Benzes, and we were kids, back then.
Back then.
Yeah.
So this is what we do. Let's get into some music, real love, and come back because we got a nice, a big discussion with this guy right here.
Let's do that. It's the Weekend Work, working on the weekend as usual. Bad Boys of Radio.
Triple H Shade 45. Triple H Shade 45 is the Weekend Work, Bad Boys of Radio. DJ Love Dinero, Coach PR, our special guest. I call this a special guest because I've known this man for a long time, Isaac Wright. Isaac, we're going to get right into it, man. Life for Life season, the TV series on ABC. It's loosely about you, right? Tell us about you, though.
Yeah, we want to know about you.
We want to know about you. What happened, bro? After 85, 87, after I didn't see you anymore, something happened. What happened, bro?
Yeah, I disappeared off the radar, man. I got caught up in a situation in New Jersey. As you know, I was doing really well. My wife and I were doing really well. I had a very successful music career. She was a very successful entertainer with the Cover Girls. We decided we were going to move, over to New Jersey. And not too long after moving over to New Jersey, I was arrested, charged with being a drug kingpin, and ultimately convicted, sentenced to life in prison on the kingpin charge, and another 70 years, on the other charges that was in the indictment. It was about an 18-count indictment. I spent 7.5 years in prison. In the show that's inspired by my life, they have me actually getting my law degree in prison, but that's actually not what happened. It was much harder than that. After spending 7.5 years in prison, I spent another 7 years on the outside after getting out pursuing a law degree. You have to have 4 years undergraduate and 3 years law school. And then after I graduated with my law degree, I passed the bar the following year. And then the character on committee investigated me for 9 more years before allowing me to have a license.
Wow.
And so, you know, there was this long challenge that they found a way to condense when they put the show together, instead of taking the public through damn near 15, 20 years worth of fighting.
Right. Put it all in.
To get a law license. But, you know, that's the short story. The long story is much more complex, because I represented myself even at trial. I represented myself at trial. I represented myself on appeal, and ultimately won my release from prison by getting a veteran police officer to confess on the stand to, you know, setting me up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So the police officer actually admitted that on the stand.
Yeah, he admitted on the stand. It was, you know, before that happened, because this was 7.5 years later after spending 7.5 years in prison. But before that happened, I had already, on appeal, I developed a new law related to the kingpin statute. And I spent 3 years in prison waiting for the right person to argue that theory. I didn't use it in my case, because my case was very political, and I knew they were just going to rubber stamp my appeal and, you know, push me on through the system, and I'd probably wind up dying in prison. So what I did was I waited there patiently for 3 years for another person to come in with the same charge. That person eventually came in, Robert Alexander, and I asked if I can put that theory in his appeal. He said yes. So I prepared the brief and put it in. One, it made new law, and then I got him out, and then I used
while you
law.
were incarcerated.
I was still incarcerated, and you know, at this time, all I had was a high school diploma. You know, when I was doing all of this, I wasn't college educated. I did this with a high school diploma, and so when I made that new law, I put it in my case, on my appeal, and they were forced to vacate my kingpin conviction. So my life sentence is gone now. You know, my life sentence is gone. But what they did was they cut me off at the knees. They saw what I had done, and so they affirmed all the other convictions, which meant that although the life sentence was gone, I got 70 more years on these other convictions to do. And now my appeals are over it. So the last resort was to go back to the trial court on a post-conviction, argue misconduct, and there was a lot of it. I mean, you know, I was screaming from the top of the roof about all the things that they did that set me up, you know, witnesses to lie. It was crazy, but, you know, nobody was listening. Remember, with this time, this was in the late 80s, early 90s. They were annihilating us. I mean, the things that people are seeing on social media now is nothing compared to what they were doing to us, because they were able to do it in secret. Now it's very difficult, you know,
to do it without anybody knowing.
Without anybody knowing, it's almost impossible these days to do it. But back then, you know, they were annihilating us with impunity, and to think that a black man would be able to fight the system back then and get the results that I had gotten, is just, looking back on it, it was an impossible endeavor. And so now I was up against the wall, because I got these 70 years. I got to go back to the trial court that was corrupt. I mean, my trial judge went to jail, you know, after this happened.
Behind your case? Part
of it behind my case, in the sense that, you know, his wrong. He did a number of things that were wrong on the outside of the bench. I mean, he was stealing from his business partners. He was doing all kinds of stuff. You know, and
a whole bunch of kickbacks.
The prosecutor was also corrupt. You know, and they conspired. The prosecutor, the judge, the police, they all conspired, you know, to do what they did to me, to put me in prison for the rest of my life, and to make sure that I stayed there. So if you look at that overall conspiracy, you look at the time that this happened, you can see the challenge that I had in moving through the system successfully. So now I'm in a situation where I got to go back to that same court that had done what they had done to me 7 years before, and say, listen, you know, y'all are corrupt. These are the things that you did to me. And because you did these things, you need to vacate these convictions and at a minimum give me a new trial. So it was, when you look at it, it was madness. It was a situation where I was expecting water to turn to ice while the temperatures was 120.
20, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Isaac, how did you like going through this and to keep going back and forth and getting denied and going through these? How did you like stay how did you stay like normal through this?
Yeah, mentally. How was
mentally,
that?
mentally, how did you stay like focused and know like I want to get out of here, I gotta do what I need to do? Like, what was your push to keep going?
Well, something happened to me early on before I even went to trial, because that's a great point you made up. And I that was a huge hurdle and a huge burden that I had to overcome in order to do what I did.
Yeah.
And that occurred, that transition occurred very early on. When I decided I was going to represent myself, the very first motion that I started working on, this is before trial, during pre-trial, I worked late into the night and fell asleep with all the paperwork, on my lap. And I might have been out maybe a couple of hours. I woke up and I decided, it was still dark because lights were out. And I decided that I was going to pick up where I left off. So I switched on my overhead light in my cell because when I was working, the lights on the outside, the way it works is at a certain period of time at night, all the lights go out. And the only thing that you have is your inside light. And so the lights on the outside of the cell were brighter than the lights inside the cell because there was some dull yellow lights they were using. So at this time, when the lights got out and I woke up, my cell was dark. So I switched on my overhead light and I attempted to pick up where I left off in my reading. And as I was reading through the papers, I didn't recognize it. I put it down and I started searching around looking for what I wrote. I went back to the papers and looked again, and I realized that that's what I was working on. It was so emotionally entangled and disruptive. I didn't even recognize me being the author of what I was written. It was exposing what I was going through. I couldn't even read it. That's how messed up it was. That's how emotional the writing was. And so I realized right then that if I couldn't read this, nobody else is going to pay any attention to this because this is too bogged down with a bunch of emotional baggage. So at that point, I had to teach myself how to separate me from my emotion and become someone else. I went through 7.5 years as a third person. Because if I went through this process as me, I would have never made it. And
it would have drained you completely.
Yes.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow.
I mastered that ability to switch that light off, to turn that switch off and focus as someone who was outside the problem that I was going through.
Right.
Wow.
As I got better and better doing that, I saw things started to change for me more and more. My writing was expertly done. I was comparing my writing to other writings from different lawyers, from prosecutors, and I could see that my writing was even better than theirs. And every year I got better and better and better and better. So by the time this 7.5 years later, I got this police on the stand, I was better than everybody around me. The pressure that I put on him on that witness stand was so intense, it broke him. Now mind you, and this is what's very important. On that day, when I went back to that hearing, my life sentence was gone. They were able to, they have the ability to retry me on that because my case was vacated, or that charge was vacated, and I was remanded for a new trial on that charge. Now, the 70 years that I was doing, I was putting in a motion to vacate all of that and get the case dismissed because of all this misconduct that had happened. So when I went to court that day, the prosecutor says, listen, this is foolish. I read his papers. He's never going to prove it. It's a bunch of garbage. These things never happened. He's lying. And he doesn't even have an uphill battle. Even the grace of God is not going to help him. I'm sure the court knows that that's what the case is. But you know what? We're going to extend Mr. Wright an olive branch. They offered me a deal to be out of prison in 2 years. That's what they offered me. And I turned it down.
So that's the part that we just seen in the last
episode.
Yes.
Right.
They offered me a deal. They said, listen, we'll take you back to trial on this kingpin, send you back to trial, send you back to prison for life. You already got these 70 years. You're going to lose emotion on that. So you're going to be doing the life plus 70, but we can wipe all this out. Take this deal for you be out in 2 years, and you can go on with your life. Now at that moment, I knew that the only thing that was going to save me was a police confession. So I rolled the dice that I was going to be able to get a police to confess, as opposed to taking the chance and going on with my life after 2 years. I rolled the dice on a police confession.
Wow.
And everybody thought I was insane.
Nah, they definitely did. Let's stay right there.
Say that.
I am.
Wow.
We gotta play some music, P.O. We gotta get back to the music real quick.
We're gonna come right back. Isaac Wright, Weekend Work, Love Dinero, Coach PR. You know this, Bad Boys Radio, 2.5.
It's the Bad Boys Radio. Isaac Wright Jr. is here with us, and we just got a lot of
crazy story. Got me thinking like, ooh, gotta be thankful, bro. Like,
so now, Isaac. So how did this story blend into the whole 50 Cent? How did that go about? Like,
there was a guy in the Bronx. We call him Hove. His name is Andy Moscott. You could see when the credits roll, you see his name as a producer on the show.
mm-hmm.
He owned an illegal fight club in the Bronx called the BX Fight Club.
Right.
It was a very successful underground fight club. I mean, hundreds of people were coming out in these garages, warehouses, these huge areas where they stored the cars that were going to be mashed up. They opened up these spaces and they held these fights. And during intermission, he was getting, rappers to perform. He's friends with 50. He was trying to get 50 to come out. 50 wouldn't do it because at that time, 50 had the boxing promoter's license. And he didn't want nobody to film him in an illegal fight club. He'd lose his license. Right. So he wouldn't come out. He said, listen, guys, if you can get this thing legal, maybe I could come out and help you, but right now I can't do it. So these guys started going around trying to get legal. They couldn't do it. They went through a number of lawyers, spent a lot of money. 50 pushed him a couple of attorneys, and 50's lawyers said, listen, it's impossible. You cannot make an underground illegal fight club legal. Legal. None of the regulations that you're doing even remotely meets the standards of professional boxing. So that's never going to happen. Now, another friend of mine, I didn't know Hove at the time, but a friend of mine, which you all probably know, Darren Dean, who's the owner of Rough Riders, D. D was speaking to Hove, and Hove told D about his problems. And D said, you know what? Where all these guys failed you, I think I got somebody that might be able to help you out. So he introduced me in Hove. Hove told me his situation, and I internalized everything he was saying. I said, listen, okay, Hove, I think I can help you. In 2 weeks, I got them legal. 2 weeks. 50 came out and performed. 50 came out and performed. And when 50 came out, the place was roaming with cops. There was cop cars all over the place. There was a bunch of people out, standing in lines trying to get in. And so 50 had the driver roll on the window. Was like, yo, what's going on? And the cops told him crowd control. So so the driver was like, yo, so we can go. And yeah, go on, have fun. We out here to make sure nothing goes on outside. So 50 went in and he performed, and it's like, yo, how did you do this? Hove told 50 the story. So 50 was like, I want to meet this guy, man. Let's set up a meeting, let's talk. And I sat down that first day in his office and talked with him, and he asked me to run with it. And I was like, do your thing. And rest is history. He made it happen.
Rest is history. He made it happen. Yeah. Truthfully, I was telling Love, like, I'm a fan of Power, and when For Life came out, I actually like For Life better than Power. Yeah. I know a lot of people look at me crazy. I'm gonna tell you why.
But why? I mean, why? Hold on. Before you say that, why would you think people would look at you crazy?
I don't know, because everybody's like, Power, you crazy? For Life. Listen, For Life is a real life.
That's a real life story.
Real life story. Like you could relate to that. Power, you got some in and outs, whatever. But it's a great show. But For Life, I just know a lot of people going through the same situations that you did.
Million.
We know a lot of people that got wrongfully convicted and still doing jail time. Yeah. And you feel for that. it was times I'm not, I'm watching the show, bro. I don't know. Maybe the onions was getting to me. I don't know but tears was coming out. I don't know. Maybe I was sweating in my eyes or whatever.
No, it's all right. It's all right. You felt it. It's okay. Let it out. Let it out, P.
It was, the show it's incredible, man.
Yeah,
I don't know how you can't feel it. Like, yeah,
it's an incredible show, and I'm going to say something about Power, and when it comes down to comparing the two shows, it's almost impossible to compare it. If I was to do a universal comparison, just in terms of just shows, the thing about Power is an incredibly well-made, well-acted, cliche show. It's a show about a drug dealer that's trying
to get out,
the
right direction.
Right.
That's a show that we've told, a story that we've told 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And
in a million different ways.
In a million different ways.
Right. Yeah.
It just happened that Power was just a great show. And it was better than most of the shows that I've seen that told the same type of story. For Life is really America's show. For Life is a show that every single American, black and white, the people who've gone through it and the people who have not gone through it but have heard about it are now seeing the truth play itself out on TV. It's an American show, man. It's a show that as a minorities, we embrace in different ways. We embrace it emotionally and we embrace it personally because we lived that. Our family lived that. That's it's not even my story anymore. It's our story. That's our story. So that's something that in terms of its universal appeal, in terms of its effect and the realness and how it reflects American values and the American system and the conflict between race and how it embeds itself in the way we enforce laws and make decisions in the criminal justice system. That is completely American. That story is 100% American.
And it's on ABC. And it's on prime time.
And it's on network TV.
It's not on cable TV.
That.
That was crazy for it to be on network. Like,
you can't get any higher than network TV. And ABC is owned by Disney. Disney is probably the biggest entertainment conglomerate in the world. So it was a huge move on behalf of 50, and I personally believe to date it was his greatest accomplishment. I personally believe that. I personally believe him getting a show, whether it was mine or any other show, him getting a show on network TV. He has outdone, starting as a rapper and going to where he's at right now, he has outdone everybody before him and probably a lot of people that's going to come after him by climbing to the top of that plateau in the TV world. You cannot get any higher today than network TV. There's nowhere else to go.
Nah, you definitely can't.
You can't. You have Nicholas Pollock? Pinnock.
Yeah.
Playing he's from the UK. How did that come about? Because I'm listening to him and I'm listening to you now. They two sound alike. That's crazy. Like, But I never thought that because I'm like, he sounds like he could be him. But how did this English man get that role?
The funny thing is that I had absolutely zero input on Nicholas being on the show, and he wasn't even one of the 3 picks that I put in the pot. But the thing is that God works in mysterious ways.
Who did you put in your pot though? Let me hear the 3 names.
It was what's his name? You ever seen it was Idris Elba. That was one.
Okay.
The other one was the guy that played on The Originals. You ever seen the vampire TV series The Originals?
Originals, yeah. Okay, I know who you're talking about. I don't know his name. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Michael. I think his name is Michael Davis.
Okay.
And then it was what's his name? I don't even. It's so because he played in Power. It was and that was me and 50's pick. the councilman in power.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm glad it got
easy name, man. And you know,
I forgot his name. He played the lawyer. He played
he played the councilman in power.
And he was sleeping with
Yes.
Tasha. Yeah, he got killed. Ghost killed him. I know you're talking about. Yeah. Nah, that's a good pick that you got, Nicholas.
Yeah, those were the three. Someone in ABC decided that Nicholas was the better person, and they were right. I mean, you know, the thing about the time when being wrong is good is when you're happy you're wrong. And
yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're happy you were wrong, that's when you know the right decision was made. Because I was elated when the first day I met him, and he shadowed me. You know, we talked a very long time. We interacted with each other a very long time. I had no idea that he was even English. He was British until
that's crazy.
Maybe we were shooting the 3rd episode. He stayed in character all that time.
While he was with you, and you didn't know that.
I had no idea he was British until the 3rd. We were on like the 3rd episode filming. He's an incredible actor. Nobody could have done a better job than him.
Does he have you down pat? Does his body language, everything?
He's got it. He's got even the way in which he like there's kind of a slump to his posture.
Yeah.
You know, there's a light. I mean, he's got it down.
Everything like that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. There's times when you know what happens, and this is the thing. What he did it very, very well. You know, there's things that goes on inside of you that you don't show in real life. Like in real life, there's a certain way that I would have dealt with the court. He dealt with the court different, a little bit more aggressive, in order to show the public what I was feeling inside, because it's difficult to do that.
Right. So, you got to present that in TV too. Like, you got to give that emotional.
So he had a tinge more aggression in the way in which he dealt with the courts. And I'm only talking about, I'm not talking about aggression in the way I move. I'm talking about the verbal interaction.
Right. Okay.
With the court. Right. My aggression in terms of moving through the system, you know, putting the motions in, arguing the motions, and just the persistent, obsessive, compulsive drive to keep going until I lost every breath. I mean, I don't know if anybody could do that better than me. But in terms of,
but he did.
but he got it so tight that it was like, I'll give you an example, right? I had no idea, and this is very, very important. This is something that a lot of people don't realize. When you're going through it, you have no idea what other people are seeing. Like, I didn't understand the real magnitude of it, even after years later, until I sat down on set and watched myself as a 3rd person see him going through it.
Right.
You know, I went back into a cell for the first time. They had a
to shoot, right?
To shoot, and it screwed me up so bad. I had to get up out of there and go back around and look at it. I had to leave all the producers because they set the booth up inside a cell, the monitors for the producers. And they were starting to shoot, and there was a command that was given by the director to close the cell doors, which meant that the cell that I was in closed too.
You got flashbacks.
Listen.
On the tower.
Let me tell you something.
You started panicking?
Let me tell you something. The sound of that metal is a unique sound.
Yeah.
That metal, when those doors close, that you'll never ever forget when you've been in prison. When those doors close, that was a moment. You got to open these doors, man. I gotta
get up out of here.
You know, so it was but at the same time, you know, it was a very therapeutic process for me, because I was going through things emotionally that I needed to have gone through years before. And I spent so much time fighting, I never even had a chance to do it. And it gave me time to do it. It gave me time to reflect on what I was, not only what I was going through, but what I actually did. Like I never even talked about it before this thing came up. You know, there were things on the internet. People would look on the internet, find out stuff about me, or people who knew me personally, you know, they talk about it. There was a Don Diva article that was done years ago that exposed some of the stuff that happened. But other than that, it was a situation where myself, you know, my family, we just kept moving through life. We kept moving forward, and you know, we didn't talk about it. And it wasn't until this series came out that there was a realization that there was a real need to deal with that.
Yeah, yes, it shined light on it because it was on a bigger scale. You know?
Yeah, and even more now because a lot of people are actually doing the prison reform. You know, the innocent program and stuff, you know, things like that, which is needed even more these days. Yeah. Because like you said, you can't just throw that under the rug now and we don't know about it. We're going to know about it now, you know? And now that you, go ahead, love.
No, go ahead.
Now that you've been practicing, now are you, I know that you are working for a law firm in back for Jersey still?
Yeah, Hunt, Hamlin, and Ridley in New Jersey.
Right. Are you helping with the people that are wrongfully convicted even more now, right? Even more so?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, the law firm is continuing to evolve because the influx of clients that are coming in with a variety of different, you know, issues, and including, you know, issues with finances. You know, a firm is in business to make money. In order to keep the doors open, you have to make money. But we also set aside areas for pro bono work, which is, you know, free work. The issue with that is that there's more people coming in that needs help, that have no money than all of us are able to take on. And so,
but don't they get a law? I'm sorry to cut you off, but isn't there like so they win a lawsuit after being wrongfully convicted? Because I'm sure didn't you have a suit also against Jersey?
Yeah, so I had a suit against Jersey. The lawsuit is one of the things that I used to get the information that ultimately I used against the detective on the witness stand that confessed. There was a document.
So you used it. So you basically used it on the
I used it as a fishing expedition. One of the things that people don't know about civil lawsuits that's totally different from criminal cases. When you sue somebody, you can literally go on a fishing expedition. You can send them interrogatories and ask them what they were doing in their mother's womb. You can get them in a deposition under oath. There's no judge there, and have them there all day asking them the most ridiculousness as you want to. And the only way that they can not answer the question, you got to get on the phone, call a judge up, and ask a judge on the phone if you can get the judge to rule on whether that person. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I understood that early on how I could use civil litigation to gain evidence in my criminal case. And it worked out like a charm. I used that document 7.5 that I got in the civil case 7.5 years later, and I got this officer to confess. That got me out of prison.
How much did you get?
As far as what the lawsuit?
The lawsuit, yeah.
Yeah, that's something.
You don't disclose that?
Yeah, I don't disclose that. But what
I heard you say it was peanuts, like, you know.
It was peanuts. Like, what I can say, you know, it was peanuts. It was something that you know, that was better served with family and friends because of all the support. I mean, my family especially gave me a lot of support. You know, what you see on For Life with the lawyer mentor, I didn't have that. I was completely alone. That's fiction. There was nobody in there.
The dude that came in, he didn't come in there.
There was nobody in there to guide me in any direction. I taught myself and created my own strategies that I thought would work based on my own personal experiences in life. You know, and that's why I said, you know, this is, when you look at the show, it's really a tragedy, but it's even worse. The reality of it is that we could not put some of the real stuff that happened on ABC. That's the family network.
Disney's not going for that. Disney's not going for that.
Yeah, they're not going for it. That would the only place you could put things like that is on cable. And so, when you start getting into riots, that's where those lines, we took it to the line as much as we could with some of the stuff that happened. But, it was a real tragedy, the 7.5 years. And this is another thing that's important, right? This series is set in New York. This happened in New Jersey. And here's why that's extremely important when it comes down to the reality of this tragedy. In New York, you may have 7 or 8 maximum security prisons. And what that means is that New York is allowed and has the ability to spread out some of the worst offenders in the prisons all over the state. In New Jersey, there's only one maximum security prison, all right? So that meant that every psychopath, every person bad came to the same place. We're all there together. To give you an example, I'm sure you heard of this guy, Iceman. You heard of Iceman?
Yeah, Iceman got like 100-some bodies, whatever.
Yes, we were right there together. He sat in my office. Yes, I knew him. He was a friend of mine. I was with him. And mind you, I'm with Iceman, and Iceman was probably one of the milder guys that was there. Seriously.
Wow.
He was probably one of the milder guys that was there. That's how bad that situation was. That's how much danger that you had to navigate through every waking moment of your life in that prison. And it was, it was a 23-hour lockdown institution. People were losing their minds every day. It was bad, man. Wow. So what you're seeing on 4 Life is tragic, but the true tragedy, ABC could not put that on TV.
Could not put that on a little lighten it up for the family channel. Wow.
No.
So season two coming. We're gonna have a good season 2, right?
We're waiting on the announcement from ABC right now on season 2. We've been talking about it. I've been talking about it with Sony because Sony is the actual lead producers on the show. ABC is a network, but Sony was the company that came in and developed the show and brought us up to pitch it. And so, Sony is the core owners of the show and they're partners with ABC. So I've had a number of discussions with Sony and with the cast members and everything. And
it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah, we're being prepared for a season 2, but until they announce it, I can't.
You can't speak on it.
Yeah, I can't speak.
All right, man. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Isaac, we appreciate you hanging out with us on the Weekend Work.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it, man. I'm sure
glad to be here.
If they don't know now, make sure you can go catch it on demand for life on
Hulu,
ABC. All that, right, man? Make sure you catch it. It's a dope-ass series. I guarantee you won't be disappointed, right?
There you go.
Isaac, let me ask you what you want to. I'm gonna let you control it. What you want to listen to on the way out?
What we gonna go out? What we
gonna go out with?
So y'all should have prepared me before you asked that question. What do I want to listen to?
What you want to hear, man?
I don't want to hear. I want to hear the song that the day I got out. There's a video on YouTube of me walking out of the jail when I was released from prison. And I got into a Mercedes waiting on me. It was a friend of mine picked me up. And the very first thing he played.
Was it white?
No, it wasn't a white one. No. The very first thing he played was a song that I had never heard before, but it became my anthem for many years coming out of prison. And that was because it portrayed my experience both in life and in prison. And that was Mobb Deep's "Hell on Earth." If you got that, play me.
We got that. Don't worry about it. We closing out with that.
Don't
worry about that. We got that.
We got that.
Isaac, we appreciate you. I'm gonna get him now on Earth right now. Go ahead and give me your Instagram and your social medias or anything. You got it.
Instagram, social media, all the same. Isaac Wright Jr. ISAACWRIGHTJR. That's my Instagram. That's my Twitter. That's my Facebook.
All right, we closing out.
Thank you, I appreciate
you, man. Thank you. You're very welcome. Take care.
All right, Weekend Work. We out. Thank you, man.
The Bad Boys of Radio.
Bad boys. What you gonna do?
They're taking over the airwaves. So turn your radio up. Weekend Work is now on.